On June 13th, 2023, along with three other people, Katrina McLean, owner of Cat's Creepy Creations in Salem, Massachusetts, was arrested on federal charges. Her crime? Buying, bedazzling, and reselling human remains on Facebook that she received from Harvard's medical school. Hello, my name is Tasha, and this is my series White Rabbit, where we deep dive into anything spooky, odd, or just interesting while I apply some special effects makeup. This week's going to be a little bit different. I'm actually going to be creating a face cast. If you don't know what a face cast is, it's a plaster mold of your actual face so that when you're creating masks or special effects prosthetics, you can actually work on your facial features and it'll be a custom fit. So I've always wanted one. I've never made one. This is going to be my first time and I'm so excited. Before we get started on today's story, please remember that the easiest way to support me is to like, comment, and subscribe so that you don't miss any future uploads. Now let's get into this story. On July 8th, 2022, police in Enola, Pennsylvania receive a tip that a local collector by the name of Jeremy Lee Pauley had human remains in his basement. This was actually the second tip they received about him. When they were first called out to the residence, they did speak with Jeremy, and he admitted to having several human skeletons in his home. But Jeremy was a collector and a seller of oddities, and he paid for these. So believing that he acquired these somehow legally, the police left. This time, however, when the police came back, they began to remove these skeletal remains and they opened an investigation into where exactly he got these from. As investigators started combing through his records, they found out that Jeremy was purchasing his bodies from a woman by the name of Candace Chapman Scott. Candace worked at a mortuary that was associated with the University of Arkansas. What's actually astonishing is that Candace was using the U.S. Postal Service to ship body parts, shipping body parts in the U.S. mail. Jeremy folded pretty quickly and he admitted that he was purchasing human body parts from Candace, and not only that, he also had a reselling business where he was profiting. Basically, he was revamping these human remains into art and then selling the art. And he was saying that this art was made from actual human body parts, and apparently there was a market for it. Investigators continued combing through Jeremy's information and they came across two more names: 46-year-old Joshua Taylor and 44-year-old Katrina McLean. Katrina was the owner of a business called Cat's Creepy Creations, where she sold oddities as well, mostly dolls. She would collect all these dolls and then just refurbish them to make them look even creepier. Rounding off this circle of horror is 55-year-old Cedric Lodge and his 63-year-old wife, Denise. Cedric was a morgue manager that had been working at Harvard's medical center since 1995. So this is what the federal government has laid out about this case. As a bit of background, Harvard does use bodies that were donated to medical science for their doctors to learn with. Afterward, the bodies are supposed to be cremated and either returned to the family or laid to rest in this special cemetery in Pennsylvania, I believe. Cedric Lodge is accused of using his position as morgue manager to smuggle body parts that were donated for medical research to his home, where his wife Denise would use social media to connect with buyers, two of which were Katrina McLean and Joshua Taylor. On at least one occasion, Cedric is accused of hosting a private viewing for Katrina and Joshua and allowing them to come in and handpick the pieces that they wanted. From 2018 to 2021, Denise Lodge received 39 payments from Joshua Taylor for human remains. He would even put things like head number 7 in the memo. In the summer of 2021, Katrina is accused of using the U.S. Postal Service to ship a batch of skin to Joshua Taylor for tanning to be turned into leather. Human leather skin. Who's buying this stuff? Joshua even sent a photo when he was done just to make sure the tanning was up to her standards. When she replied and said it was up to her standards, she then offered to pay him in human skin. I don't know, I don't think that I brought up before, but Katrina was also using the human remains in her art. As I said before, this is an ongoing case, so these are just allegations. The receipts are receding. Honestly, it doesn't even seem like they were trying to hide it that great. The post said that they were human remains. But this is not Harvard's first time being tied to stolen cadavers. The medical field and medical education was actually built on grave robbing. Not even grave robbing, but like body snatching. It was very common in the late 18th century for medical schools to hire grave diggers. These grave diggers would search for newly dug graves, and they would retrieve the bodies and bring them back to the medical schools so that the students could practice. Some schools like Harvard were actually considered lucky because they were allotted 2 bodies per year to practice on. Just 2 for doctors. Can you imagine? So obviously that was not enough for a booming medical school like Harvard. So Harvard also hired some grave diggers. They were actually called resurrection men. And to these resurrection men, grave digging was like an art. They prided themselves on being so sneaky that you wouldn't even realize the ground had been disturbed. But of course, this didn't always work, and there were times where people were caught and the public became outraged. There was one time where the medical students had to actually barricade themselves into the school because an angry mob had formed outside. Eventually, in 1832, a legislation did get passed stating that unclaimed bodies of the poor could be used for medical research. So that put a big dent in the need to illegally obtain bodies. But the situation that we're talking about now is so different than Harvard's situation in the past. Not saying that it's okay, but there is a huge difference in stealing bodies for medical research so that doctors can learn how to actually operate on human bodies is very different than stealing a body and skinning it for creepy doll art. As I said before, this case is still unfolding, so I'm sure we're going to get so much more information. I would love to hear your thoughts on it. I post the makeup tutorials on my TikTok and my Instagram, so if you're interested, go check those out. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss any future uploads. If you have any cases that you want me to cover, please leave those in the comment section, and I will see you next time.